Hello, sweet viewers. Annyeong, that means hi in Korean. I'm Christine with Kimbap TV, empowering you to live a happier and safer life, especially if you're a fellow domestic violence survivor. Well, as we enter the holiday season during COVID-19, I'm reminded of the many reasons to be thankful despite the circumstances. As a born-again Christian, my faith is very important to me, and in this video, I want to share my testimony with you. It helps me to appreciate Christmas in a deeper way and reflect on the priceless gift that God gives us. So, let's dive in. During the summer before my senior year at UCLA, I interned at our local ABC station. I went out one day on a shoot with a reporter named Leo and a camerawoman named Marie. They flat out said they didn't like interns and initially gave me a hard time. But throughout the day, I tried to be useful, offering to roll up cables and do anything they needed. They eventually warmed up to me and told me that interns were generally very entitled and not very helpful. We bonded during our shift, and at the end of the day, Marie invited me to stay in touch. She said her church was reopening on 9/11, a few weeks away, after getting burned by a fire. She suggested I reunite with them there since I lived close by. Prior to this day, I really had no interest in going back to church. I was forced to go to church as a child and I absolutely hated it. But I also thought about this as an opportunity to network with some TV folks. So I said, okay, totally the wrong motive, but I was young, ambitious, and selfish. As the weeks passed, I told one of my best friends, Camille, about my plans to go back to church on 9/11. She was a Christian, so she was very excited. But a few days before, Marie reached out saying her church wasn't ready to reopen on time. I was bummed, but Camille asked me to go to her church instead since I lived really close to there too. And she offered lunch afterwards, so I said fine. Camille's church is a giant place. It was called Calvary Chapel South Bay, and it felt like Disneyland. The parking lot was huge and filled with so many people. We made our way into the main sanctuary, and the service began. Pastor Steve Mays began to teach, and one of the first things that he said was something like, "The world is coming to an end soon, aren't we glad?" It was a 9/11 themed service, and that statement totally shocked me. I just sat there for the next hour, extremely convicted, uncomfortable, but also very curious. Like, what is he talking about? Who is Jesus? And why should I care? Pastor Steve's teachings brought me back again and again. Sunday morning, Sunday evening, Thursday evening. A lot of what I learned kept convicting me, and I desired to know more. Then one day, it finally hit me. Like, oh my gosh, I finally understood the gospel. It was about having a personal relationship with God and living by faith even when life got hard. My faith got tested big time when my senior year began. A lot about my life at the time wasn't right, and I knew I had to make some difficult decisions. I was drinking a lot, dating the wrong guy, and just overall being super self-destructive. On the first Saturday after school started, I was driving up the 405 from Gardena when I just started crying. I prayed during the drive for God to send me a black and white sign to let me know that I was on the right path, because some of the decisions that I was going to make were so not worth it otherwise. As I was getting off the freeway in Westwood, I got a call from the ABC camerawoman, Marie. She said she knew this was totally random, but she felt like she needed to pray for me right then. Without knowing my situation, she just started praying over the phone about many things I've been grappling with. I cried again, wondering if this was the sign that God was sending me. This would be the only time Marie called me. That night, I had 4 back-to-back parties to go to, and I fully expected to drink at all of them. But one of the things Marie prayed for was for me to not be tempted. And sure enough, I wasn't tempted, which was kind of like a miracle in itself. I didn't drink a drop of alcohol that night, and actually wouldn't for the next several months to come. My friends were shocked, and I even became their designated driver as we hopped from place to place. Some of my friends made fun of me for my drastic change, but none of that bothered me. Around 3 in the morning, I started driving back to my home in the South Bay. I was back on the 405 heading the opposite direction from that morning, and I was feeling so content and proud of myself for resisting temptation and taking a positive step in my life. Then out of nowhere, the car in front of me stopped. I was on the fastest lane of the freeway on the left side, and I slammed on my brakes to avoid hitting that vehicle. My car spun out of control across all 5 lanes, and I saw headlights coming towards me as I was spinning. I remember thinking, oh my gosh, as I went from the leftist lane to the very right. My car came to a halt just about an inch or so from a semi-truck that already crashed into another car. My car engine turned off by itself, and the Honda Civic was facing the direction it was originally traveling before the crazy almost crash. I dialed 911, but the line was busy. A flood of cars passed by just after my car stopped, and I saw multiple people standing on the freeway with their phones. I guess they were calling 911 too. I called a friend who told me to see if my engine turned back on and told me to drive slowly back home. I passed by cars to my left and right that were half flipped over or completely upside down. It seemed like a scene from Armageddon, and yet my car didn't hit anything and was working just fine. I was so shaken up that when I got home, I had no interest in lying to my mom. I told her everything that happened, and then at church the next morning, I thanked God for sparing my life and for giving me such a clear sign. After service, I got my car checked out, and the service guy told me he had no idea why and how my car engine suddenly turned off by itself. After inspecting the entire vehicle, he said besides some burnt rubber marks on my tires, he'd have no idea that my car went through all that just a few hours ago. A few months later, I told a mentor named Karen at ABC who anchored the weekend news. And I mentioned how crazy that night was, and she had no idea what I was talking about. They never covered it. It's as if it never happened. Isn't that crazy? Well, ever since that day, I never questioned God. I know He spared my life that day, and I am so grateful for that. But even more importantly, I think He spared my life because I still have things I need to do here on earth. So that's what I've been trying to figure out ever since, especially during this pandemic. What is my true purpose in life, and how do I fulfill it? It's like as a domestic violence survivor, when I was spared that night from my abuser, I knew I survived for a reason that was much bigger than myself. Going through a couple of life or death experiences now makes me so much more grateful for the life I'm still able to live. And it makes me reflect on the life Christ so freely gave to us. As a Christian, I believe that Jesus is the Son of God and that He came into this world to give us the eternal gift of salvation. Christmas to me is a celebration of His humble birth here on earth. The Son of God was born in a manger, and because He exists, my life has so much more meaning. It's often hard for me to maintain a thankful heart because it gets cluttered with so much ungratefulness. So this Christmas season, I'm challenging myself to reflect on my own testimony and remember that feeling of adrenaline rush when I felt the presence of God so clearly in my life. I wish for that again, without the scary near crash or physical attack. My mind naturally defaults to negative thoughts about everything. Like right now, the first thoughts that would come to mind are the fact that I may get the coronavirus any day, that I can't go to the gym, or that I can't shop like I want to and try everything on at the store. But the more I take myself out of my own thoughts and focus on God and His presence instead, my discontent starts to melt away. My husband and I started doing a Bible study fellowship lesson on the book of Genesis, and we are rejoining our small group at church via Zoom, not because it excites me to do all this, but because it disciplines me to stay in God's Word and in fellowship so that my spiritual walk can continue to grow stronger. And as we have been doing for years leading up to Christmas, my friend Charlene and I are doing an Advent devotional on our Bible app. I don't know what season you're currently in, but I hope my testimony encourages you to know that we're never truly alone and that God loves us. Thank you so much for watching, and please like, share, and subscribe so I can greet you more often. Take great care of yourselves, and I'll see you again in my next video. Bye.